Welcome everyone. In this video, we are having to look at some traps on Lichess study. So let's log into Lichess. From here, learn and study. In the study, we go to the most popular. Once you're on the most popular, as you can see here, 41,000 of likes by the users opening traps. This is the one we are going to have a look at. So let's click on the study. And here on the left side, you can see we have got 24 chapters, and the first one is called the fishing pole trap. Let's click on that, and for that we have to be on the black side, so I just flip the board. White opens with e4, e5, black response, knight f2, knight c6, bishop b5, nothing in particular. So knight to f6, and now double zeroed. So white goes for the kingside castles, and now here is the move knight to g4. That's already provoking white to play h3. H3 is not the required move, but even then white played h3 to spice up. And here is the first fishing pole traps starts with h4. And here, if there is anything that white needs to remember, do not take the knight immediately. Instead, you should have played for c3 and trying to get the move d4. That would have been the best move. But what it accepts, so decided to take the knight, and that's already a blunder. And black now opens the h file for the rook by h takes g4, and the knight on f3 is immediately under attack by the pawn, and the knight must move, or the automatic reaction is to move the knight. What if they just moves back? And now this is an instructive way to checkmate. So this is a mating net here by the queen and the rook battery, with an important assistance from the pawn on g4. So let's see how this thing's into the motion. And a black springs queen to h4 with a mate on h1 or h2. And there are no good possibilities for the white side. So he decided to play a luft. A luft means an air for the king to escape. So you don't need to immediately check it, then the king will escape. So first we stop the escape square. We close the mating net by the move g3, and now the game is all lost now. There is no way white can stop queen coming to h1 and the mate. All the pieces near the white king is not coming to any help, and whatever he plays, let's say even if the bishop takes it, you don't need to recapture. There is a mate there, queen to h1 mate. So that is the fishing pole trap. And now let's move to the Lasker trap. Lasker trap, so it happens after d4 d5 c4 e5. So we call this Albin's counter gambit. And now just takes it, and now d4. The move d4 just stops knight coming to the c3. So he goes for the move e3, just challenging the pawn. It's not a great move. Black takes time to develop. Bishop to b4 with a check, and it's supposed to block it. And he blocks with the bishop takes bishop to d2. And now the black player goes for d captures e3. So that's a good move with an attack. And now the best move for the white side is the counterintuitive, just take it back, but you cannot take the piece. So what would happen if you take the piece? That is all about this Lasker trap. So takes it, and now white's king side is getting destroyed with the move pawn takes it f2 check. The point is king cannot take it back because the queen will be left undefended. As you can see, the d file is open, the queens are face to face. So white is forced to play king to e2. And now once again a precise move. It's not the bishop to g4 thinking that there is a skewer, because knight will come to f3. So now with the elimination, you should remove the knight, but at what cost? Or at the best move is pawn capture the knight, under promoting to a knight, not the queen, but a knight. So what would happen if you capture and promote to a queen? White has the in-between move. Queen captures queen, king captures, and now rook can capture them. The thing is now black's attack is dissipated. All the pieces are exchanged. So instead, instead under promoting to a knight. And the point is, it just the knight arrives with a check, so there is no way he can get it out of the check except taking the knight, or maybe can go for king to e1. But that's for not the trap is all about. Here rook captures is the most natural move, and now the game or the board is ready for the deadly skewer. Bishop to g4 and the queen is lost, the game is lost. So that was the last cut trap. Now let's move on to the third one, the Budapest trap. All right, so d4, knight to f6, knight to d2, e5. And that's already a provoking, so takes it. And now knight to g4. And here, possibly the best move is either e4 or knight to f3. But we just punish if he plays with the move h3. As you can see, the move h3 is not contributing towards the center or any development of the pieces, and there is a immediate punishment, and that's very strong. Knight to e3, and now the game is all over. Here the knight is threatening the queen. The queen will be lost. The queen is kind of trapped, except you need to just capture the knight. And once you capture the knight, and there is a more disaster on the way, the catastrophic queen to h4. And now the game is over because we have a fool's mate. Look at the deadly diagram and all the weaknesses. The h3 move just weakened the g3 square, and then f captures e3 weakened all these dark squares around the king. And black is the one that quickly made a use of all the weaknesses with a deadly checkmate. This false mate pattern could happen in all sorts of different openings. Anyway, so let's move on to the next one, the Monticelli trap. White opens with a d4, knight to f6, e4, e6, knight f3, bishop to b4. We have Bogo Indian defense, bishop d2, then bishop trades, queen captures d2, b6, g3, bishop b7, and bishop g2. White just fiancatoid, and then kingside castles, knight to c3, and now knight to e4, queen to c2, an attack on the knight. Now here is the most interesting, the game takes an interesting turn. Knight takes c3, and the Monticello trap starts with the move knight to g5. Lots of things and lots of arrows that are on the board, so I'll break it down. So what all this happened? The knight is attacking the h7, the queen is already attacking on h7, so that's a sneaky queen there. Queen takes h7 is an immediate mate. There are no supporting on the h7, only just the king, so that will be a mating threat. And what just happened after the move knight to g5, as you can see, the bishop's line is open to the bishop plus an attack on the queen. So b7 bishop under attack, so it was the h7 and now the b7, and plus the knight on c3 can be attacked two ways, either with the b takes c3 or queen captures c3. Here the best move for the black side, and that's up, and that should be good enough. I mean, the position is still with correct play, it should be a draw. Knight to e4 is the best move, but instead, what if queen captures? It's not the best move, but the game should end up in a draw. But here the simple move is queen captures on b7 with an attack on the rook, and the rook will be captured, but with but it's still an unclear position. Okay, so that's Monticelli trap, and there is a game from Max Erwe and Jose Raul Capablanca. Right, so let's move on to the next one that's called Kininker trap. For that, it happens with the move d4, knight to f6, c4, e5. So this is a Budapest defense. So takes it, and now knight to g4 with an attack on the pawn. That's defended by the bishop. And now knight to c6. So there is a multiple attack on the e5 pawn by the two knights. So knight to f3, so developing a piece and protecting further. Bishop b4 with a check, and now knight b to d2. Here the most sharper line is knight to c3, but nb2 is still a playable move. And now queen to e7, and that's further attack on the e5 pawn. And there is the move e3, and that allows us to take it. it's the move is knight captures on e5. Here, capturing the bishop is a blunder. That's what happened in the game. Takes it, and now this allows a smothered mate because the queen is on the e file, and all you need to do is check the pawn on e2. The strength of the pawn on e2 is imaginary. Why? Because the pawn on e2 is pinned. So the move knight to d3, that's a very satisfactory mate. So a takes b4 is was the mistake in this position. Now let's move on to the seventh one. That's Blackburn Shilling Trap. So it starts with e4, e5, knight to f3, knight to c6, bishop to c4, and now knight to d4. Even though it looks like an interesting try, but it's not the best move here. Do not take the pawn. Taking the pawn will be a mistake. But instead, what best move for the white side is just take the pawn, take it, and then you can go for the castles. And black is not so great, and white is in excellent shape. He get the center. All right. So instead, white decided to be greedy and take the pawn, and this is asking for trouble. Even though there seems to be an attack on the pawn, and black is the one who is like, okay, you can just capture the pawn on f7. So instead he goes for the very clever queen to g5, and white player decided knight takes f7, forking the queen and the knight with the help of the bishop. But then queen takes a g2 with black's on attack on the rook plus the e4 pawn. So there is no time for white to capture the rook. So decided to first defend his rook on h1 with the move rook to f1. And now queen takes e4 check. If there's only two ways to block the check, one by the bishop and by the queen. By the queen means knight will simple just capture the queen and win the game. But what if bishop to e2, and like in the last example, it's the same thing. The bishop is pinned, so its power is just imaginary. So the move is knight to f3. The bishop cannot take it, that is pinned. We have another a beautiful smothered mate. And let's move to the next one. That's the legal's trap. It's one of the most beautiful with a three-piece checkmate. Let's see how this thing happens. e4, e5, knight to f3, d6. Now bishop to c4. Again, excellent developing move. Another good option is to play d4. Bishop to g4. Now remember, the bishop has been developed here, but the bishop is not yet protected. It might think that there is a pin here, but this pin is a relative pin, right? It's not an absolute pin. The knight can be moved, so that's something black should always take care of, because the queen will attack the bishop. So that's a two-way attack. So knight to c3, developing another piece. And here is not a great move. That's a mistake. g6. The problem with the move g6, it's not developing any piece. It's not contributing in the center. Meanwhile, white is the one that's developed the three pieces now, and also the bishop on g4 is not really defended. Here, any suggested move for the black side would have been any in like knight to f6 or knight to c6 would have been recommended, but instead all he done is just push these pawns. Now it's a time for the punishment. Knight takes e5, and now there are two attacks. The knight is attacking the f7, plus the bishop is attacking the sorry, the queen is attacking the bishop, but the bishop in return attacks the queen. But the trap is what if just takes it, and now these three pieces is good enough to checkmate the king. As you can see, the two squares are taken, and all you need to do is just these two squares, and that just happens with the move bishop takes f7 check, and only move king to f6. And now the king has got only these two squares, rest of the squares all are taken. And how can you check with these two squares? And luckily we have this knight to d5, and these three pieces checkmates the king in the center by sacrificing the queen. And here's something, it's a beautiful mate, but there is something that we wanted to notice that one. What if just a pawn takes it? Pawn takes it is met by queen takes a g4. That's what we mean by it's a relative pin. The queen is attacking the bishop as well. And now white is a pawn up, and then he could win this game with precise play.